Brodsworth Hall, this mansion in South Yorkshire, took just 3 years to build and to furnish. It was built for Charles Sabine Augustus Tellewson. Yes, that's the name of one person who inherited this estate in 1859. The house and the gardens are now run by English Heritage and they're open to the public. Tellewson had enough money to enjoy the house that he'd built. But as time passed and other family members inherited, it became just too expensive to maintain. And gradually rooms became unused, and then eventually whole wings were abandoned. And by the 1970s, Sylvia Grant Dalton, the widow of his grandson, was living here on her own apart from the company of 2 paid helpers and 2 dogs. She was using just 3 out of the total 52 rooms. And when she went up to bed at night, she would pop her head into the lumber room next to the library and say, "Good night, Charles," even though her husband Charles had long since passed away. Was she aware of his lingering presence? And was she aware of the many other spirits who over the years have been reported to roam this place? Like an Edwardian gentleman who glides up and down the library steps. The same steps where a crinoline figure has been seen by staff and by visitors. I wonder if Sylvia ever glanced up those stairs and saw peering down at her, as many servants had previously, the ghost of a soldier in a uniform from way back. And if she did, I wonder if that would have frightened her, or maybe she would have felt reassured in some way that she was being guarded. She would sit in the formal dining room at the big dining table for a main meal, and I wonder if she ever heard an almighty din coming from the room upstairs, like a huge row was taking place. Again, servants had experienced this in the past, but as with many ghost stories, when the room was investigated, it was completely empty. But if Sylvia did know about it, I wonder if she just sat there and thought, the ancestors are at it again. An estate foreman who worked here for over 40 years told of a presence. He said it was as though the house was listening. Some people experience a presence in the billiard room, and sometimes a smell of cigar smoke. When I first went in there, I didn't like it. I felt uncomfortable and I didn't know why. I have to say, when I went in there again more recently, I found it to be quite warm and pleasant, and I didn't pick up on anything disturbing. The corridor that Sylvia used to get to her bedroom is the same one where a member of staff has, on more than one occasion, seen the ghost of Charles Grant Dalton walking up and down in a Home Guard uniform. In one of the bedrooms, there is an old type of wheelchair, and sometimes people see a bearded gentleman sitting in it, wearing a top hat. But what I find most interesting is that it's people who are wheelchair users themselves who mostly tend to see him. The family were dog lovers. There's even a creepy pet cemetery with real headstones bearing the names of the faithful pets over the centuries. Some of the doors in the house bear frantic scratch marks made by dogs trying to get in or out. They say that dogs can be particularly sensitive to supernatural activity. And I wonder if any of those scratches were made by frightened dogs trying to escape from it. There's a story of a servant who struggled to get into one of the rooms because something invisible inside there had this power to push her out and slam the door. Maybe the same room next to a little bathroom upstairs where a modern-day member of staff, when he checked the room was empty and he locked the door, he then heard on the inside of the locked door a stamp, stamp. Bang, bang. That really spooked him. I think I'd be one of those who just downright refuses to go upstairs on their own. I just wouldn't do it. If you like ghost stories, check out the Facebook page of Ghostkeeper of York because he's got some great ones. There's also the Ghostkeeper of York YouTube channel and the website ghostkeeper.co.uk. Now, the last time I came here, I was the last customer at the tea room, just as they were closing. But I wanted a warm drink, mainly to warm my hands because it was cold outside. So the staff were clearing away, but they let me have a drink of tea, and I took it down the corridor and sat in the seating area and sat and warmed my hands and had my drink. And then when I came to leave, the outside door was locked and there was nobody about. And I thought, well, that's okay, I'll just need to find somebody to let me out because the tea room is closed. But I couldn't hear anybody. Everything was quiet, and all I could hear as I walked down the corridor was the echo of my footsteps on the stone flags. And I thought, well, wouldn't that just be ironic if I got locked in Brodsworth Hall after I've been collecting all of these ghost stories, locked in with the ghosts? But then when I turned the corner where the serving area and the kitchen are, it was still all silent. And then I started to get worried because I was calling out, hello, and nobody was answering me. And that's when I thought, never, they have not gone home and forgotten about me and locked me in this house with all of these ghosts. There was one more outside door that I was walking towards, and a woman silently stepped out of the last room on the right-hand side and stood in front of the door. My face must have looked a picture. She said something to me. I replied, I cannot remember what, but the door creaked open and I was out. I cannot tell you how grateful I was, how relieved I was to be back out into the cold. And now my family are saying to me, was she a ghost? Well, I've no idea. Those last few seconds were a bit of a blur. But whomever or whatever she was, I am very grateful to her for letting me out of this haunted house.